Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're zeroing in on a single, incredibly potent teaching from Jewish wisdom literature.
And we're going to use it as a kind of lens.
Exactly. A lens to re-examine how we process, well, the difficult parts of our lives, the suffering.
Our source for this is a teaching on Parshat Vayigash from Likkutei Sichos, volume 25.
And this isn't just an academic exercise, is it?
No, not at all. The mission here is to really understand the spiritual mechanics behind the text. It's offering a kind of blueprint.
A blueprint for what some might call spiritual alchemy.
That's a great way to put it. It's about transforming what feels like a crushing decree
Into a necessary destiny. And the whole framework for this starts with a very simple story, a classic, really.
right? The story of the man who comes to his Rebbe just broken.
He's weeping, his life is in shambles, financial problems, health issues, family stress. He says his life is just bitter.
And the Rebbe's response, it cuts right through all that noise.
It does. He makes this crucial distinction. He looks at the man and says, your life isn't bad.
It's just bitter.
And that, right there, is the pivot point for our whole discussion. Because in our minds, bitter and bad are basically the same thing.
We assume that if something feels painful or difficult, it must be destructive, inherently bad.
But the Rebbe uses this analogy of medicine.
The most potent medicine, the kind that brings the deepest healing, is almost always bitter.
The bitterness is just the shell, the coating. It's not the essence of the thing itself.
And that's our deep dive today, finding the medicine, the destiny that's hidden inside life's most bitter decrees.
To do that, we have to engage in what the tradition calls avodat Hashem.
Which is, for our listeners, that's the practical, hands-on spiritual work. It's not just theory.
It's about applying these big ideas to, your Tuesday afternoon.
Precisely.
So to start this work, let's go to that dramatic scene in Egypt, the opening of Parshat Vayigash.
The fate of Jacob's whole family is hanging by a thread. It all depends on this powerful Egyptian viceroy, who is, of course, Yosef in disguise.
And the verse that kicks it all off is Vayigash elav Yehuda.
And Yehuda approached him. And the commentators, Rashi and the Midrash, they're very clear on this.
This wasn't a meek, submissive approach, was it?
Not in the slightest. Yehuda was fierce. He was ready for a legal battle, even a physical one, to save his brother Binyamin.
So the tension is at its absolute peak. And in the middle of this desperate plea, Yehuda says something baffling.
He looks at this powerful viceroy, at Yosef, and says, Ki chamo ke Pharaoh.
For you are like Pharaoh.
And this is the central puzzle the Rebbe tackles. Think about the situation for a second.
Okay.
Yosef is the guy with the grain. He's the source of sustenance, the one who saved the entire region from starvation.
He's the provider.
Exactly. And Pharaoh is the symbol of exile, of crushing decrees. He's the ultimate oppressor.
So why on earth would you compare the provider to the decreer? In that moment, it's insulting, it's risky.
It seems to make no sense at all. It suggests he sees no difference between his family's savior and their jailer.
And this is where the Rebbe's teaching just opens up a whole new level of understanding.
Yeah. It does. Because if you only look at the surface, at the function Yosef gives grain, Pharaoh gives orders, the comparison is absurd.
But the Rebbe explains that in that moment of intense pressure, Yehuda had a flash of profound spiritual clarity.
He saw something deeper.
Or let's unpack that insight, because this is where the alchemy really begins. What did he see?
He realized that the decree, the exile, the hardship, everything symbolized by Pharaoh, and the sustenance, the support needed to survive it, symbolized by Yosef.
They aren't two separate, opposing things.
No, he saw that they are, in fact, two unified expressions of the very same divine energy.
So we have to look past the characters and see the spiritual forces they represent. Pharaoh is the goizer.
The goizer, the one who constrains, the one who issues the decree, the severe force.
And Yosef is the mashpia.
The mashpia, yes,
Yes.
the provider, the abundant flow of blessing and aid.
And Yehuda suddenly saw that these two things, the constraint and the flow, were one.
Two sides of the same divine coin. And that insight changes everything. It transforms the challenge from some random, cruel punishment
Into the necessary catalyst for their destiny. The suffering becomes the very energy needed to forge them into a nation.
Exactly.
But this brings up a really important practical question. A challenge, even.
Okay.
If we take this to heart, how do we stop this idea from sounding like toxic spiritual positivity when someone is facing a real crushing illness or financial ruin?
That is the critical distinction between a shallow platitude and a deep insight. The teaching is not telling you to deny the pain.
The medicine is bitter.
Of course it is. But it's asking you to recognize the source of the pain. It's telling you to realize that this harsh reality isn't just some external enemy trying to destroy you.
It's a concealed expression of jiddliness.
It's necessary. The Yosef, the blessing, the growth, is structurally hidden inside the Pharaoh. The challenge, the difficulty.
But how do we see that? I mean, we see the Pharaoh very clearly.
Yeah.
Yosef is invisible.
The key, the mechanism for that perception shift, is a concept called betul.
Self-nullification.
Yes, it's the state Yehuda reached. It means stepping outside of your ego, outside of your immediate reactive self.
It's about seeing that the challenge isn't just about me and my suffering.
It's about a much larger divine process working itself out. When you can quiet that personal noise, the deeper unified reality can start to emerge.
We often talk about this barrier, this external shell, as a klipa.
Right, the husk or illusion that hides the divine spark inside. It's the bitterness, the hardness we fight against.
So if betul is the key to piercing that klipa, we need to see it in action.
And that's why the teaching brings in that beautiful story of the Baal Shem Tov and the water carrier. It illustrates this shift perfectly.
Right, so the Baal Shem Tov sees this water carrier, and his job is just brutal.
Unbelievably hard. He's struggling up a hill, weighed down by these two massive buckets of water.
And he's just grumbling, complaining that the job is killing him, focusing on his aching back, his poverty.
He is completely trapped inside the Pharaoh reality of his labor, the klippa. For him, life is bad because the buckets are heavy and the hill is steep. End of story.
But then, the Baal Shem Tov sees the exact same man a few hours later.
Same man, same hill, same heavy buckets. Nothing external has changed.
But the man himself is transformed. He's smiling, almost dancing up the hill.
And he's joyfully saying, Baruch Hashem, blessed is God.
It's a total reversal. So the Baal Shem Tov asks him, what happened? What miracle occurred?
And the man says he just had this realization that God had given him this incredible gift.
The gift of strength to carry the water, the health to earn an honest living for his family.
He realized he was strong and independent.
So the buckets didn't get any lighter.
Not at all.
And the hill didn't get any flatter. The only thing that changed was his perspective.
That was a moment of betul. He suddenly saw the Yosef, the strength, the purpose hidden inside the Pharaoh, the bitter labor.
And in that moment, the bitterness transformed into sweetness. He pierced the klippa.
And what's so important here is that the goal wasn't just to feel better about the buckets. The goal was to see the necessity of the heavy buckets.
They were the very thing that revealed his strength. The decree wasn't designed to crush him. It was designed to build him.
Which brings us right back to where we started.
Vayigash ilav Yehuda.
Exactly. That approach wasn't just a physical movement. It was a profound mental shift. It was the ultimate act of betul.
So when we approach our own Pharaoh moments,
That difficult boss, the financial stress, the scary health report,
if we can approach them with this realization that the divine is hidden inside the challenge, then the entire experience shifts.
it changes from punishment into pedagogy. From a lesson in pain to a lesson in growth.
The Egypt in our lives stops being a prison.
And it becomes a classroom, a very demanding classroom, but a classroom nonetheless designed to teach us about our own hidden strength.
And that really is the ultimate aim here. It's about merging the kingdom of Yehuda
Which represents that submission, that accountability to a higher source.
with the kingdom of Yosef.
Which represents the transformation, the ability to manage and find sustenance within the system. You need both to reach your destiny.
So what does this all mean for you, the person listening? The confrontation with bitterness in life is, well, it's unavoidable.
But our perception of it, whether we see it as destructive or as formative, that is entirely within our control.
The key takeaway is this conscious, active spiritual work of transforming that bitter experience.
Seeking out the growth and the purpose that is, by design, hidden inside the decree.
So here's a final thought and a direct action item for you this week.
Okay.
When you have one of those Pharaoh moments,
Yeah.
and it could be a small frustration or a major setback.
Instead of recoiling, instead of immediately labeling it as bad and falling into that victim mindset,
Approach it. Just pause. Take 30 seconds. Identify that specific stressor.
and before you try to solve the external problem, perform this internal movement first.
Acknowledge the challenge, and then apply Yehuda's flash of insight. You don't have to say it out loud, but just state it to yourself. Ki chamoka kafero.
I recognize that inside this challenge, inside this bitterness, there is a hidden spark of growth, a hidden Yosef.
A deep and necessary good that is intended for my ultimate destiny.
And that realization, it doesn't make the buckets lighter, but it instantly changes the nature of the work.
It transforms it from an act of destruction to one of construction. It moves you from being a victim of a decree to being a conscious participant in your own unfolding destiny.
A powerful shift in perspective.
Until the next deep dive, approach your challenges with this insight and see if you can find the destiny hidden in the decree.